Before we begin this episode, I recommend you going back and listening to part 1 of my conversation with Sergeant Adams. You'll understand her and her perspective a little better if you do, which I believe is important before you start diving into tough social topics like the ones we discuss in this episode. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes and leave a review. If you do, we'll appreciate it immensely. All right, on to the episode.
The police were created to keep the community safe. And that's what we did. We took an oath to make sure everybody is safe. So the last thing we want to do is to take your life. Yeah. But if put in the situation where it comes down to protecting life, and it's a scuffle for my gun, who knows what the outcome is going to be. So when we talk about police brutality, yeah, there are some officers out there that shouldn't be police officers. Like there are doctors out there that shouldn't be doctors. There are preachers out there that shouldn't be preachers. And I want people to think about what the world would be like if there were no police officers.
Welcome to Reaching Out. I'm your host, Zack Carter. Please join me as I speak with a diverse group of people to find out their thoughts on religion, politics, and culture. I'm interested in your opinion as a black officer on like Black Lives Matter. It seems like that's a group that butts heads with the police a lot. So, what are your thoughts on Black Lives Matter, police brutality?
Okay.
You know.
Well, I think there's a lot of education has to take place on both sides.
Okay.
And so with most police departments now, just like when I talked about having that conversation about domestic violence, we look at what happened in Ferguson. There had never been a conversation about mandating police departments to reflect their community. Is that there should not be one group over another, but the department should reflect the community so that you would have officers from that community policing that community. So you have relationships, just like with me and my community.
Yeah. So are you talking like racially, or are you just saying you physically need to have lived there?
No, it could be either. All of that should be a part of it, because then those who have not lived there, they can help educate those those that have lived there can help educate those who haven't lived there, because history is key. Because if you don't understand where I come from, you and what I've dealt with, and that's a lot of the conversation that happens. So like with me, I've lived here in Richmond since I was 5 years old. I know everybody. When I go and walk out the street, you know what I'm saying?
I've seen it.
Yeah. So what you do.
Yeah.
And so for me, I can walk up and I can go in any community without my gun. I can go in any community and do anything and talk to anybody that I want to talk to. And so, but every officer can't do that because they just don't have the historical relationships. So the goal is for the citizens to see the officer as a human being, and the officer to see the citizen as a human being, and for all lives to matter, not just black lives. And so in bringing people together so that everybody can be heard. You know, everybody has a right to their opinion. And there have been, you know, when we talk about Black lives, we've had the what do we call it? The profiling. We've had profiling in communities. We've had profiling of certain people, certain groups of people. And so historically we do policing, you know, there have been a lot of things that weren't thought out that was done. And so we have to hear from the groups. And so when we talk about the Black Lives Matter and violence, for me, I always say all lives matter. But when you look at the statistics, and there are statistics out there that show how many African American people, how many European people, and how many Hispanic people have been killed by the police. And the thing is that the media shines more on when it's the African American killed by the police. There's more media outlet when it comes down to that. So it makes it seem like it's so much more. So I urge you to go online to look up those statistics. Yeah. But the thing is that with all groups, when we talk about violence, I would like to see more of every life mattering. And we have the protest when an officer takes a life. There should be protests about any life that's lost. And we should be in those communities where there's high violence perpetrated against the same people, regardless Do you understand what I'm
totally.
saying?
Yeah,
And
I'm
so,
following you.
and that's what I fuss about. We should not give value to a life only because it's been taken at the hands of a white officer or by a police officer. That's crazy to me. A life lost and taken by anybody, that's a loss to all of us. And so we should be working to educate against violence. Why conflict resolution? Why do we have to resort to violence? But that still goes back to the accessibility of guns. Because if we had less guns on the street, then there would be less opportunities for people to take people's lives, like in the old days when people used to fight. So all lives matter, and Black lives specifically, because we talk about the systemic part of it. So systemically, we look at the jails, the prisons. There are more African Americans in prison. People are in prison because they can't afford not to be. And if your economic status does not afford you the opportunity to have an attorney that can speak for you in court, all of those things go into that Black Lives Matter. And so I would love to see the conversation, or to see the group, not just when a life has been taken by an officer. The group should be there every time a life has been taken, because we need to educate everybody on the opposite end who has been involved in this interaction of having to take a life. Why are we at a phase where we can't work things out as adults and as human beings, and especially in our city when we see we're losing more young people and more women. And so that's really a time for everybody to be saying, okay, hold on, what's happening now? And it's not just people that are involved in drug deals and in the wrong place. Some people are in the wrong place at the wrong time. But when we talk about our children, it's not safe for our children to be standing out on the street. And when families can't sit out on the front porch because people are going to drive by and going to shoot it, we just spray the neighborhood with guns. So all Black lives do matter. Every life matter. But Black lives got to live with all other lives, the European lives and the Latino lives, living, and we should all be living together. But I would like to see a lot more emphasis placed on how do we resolve this? You know, Black lives matter, so we need to be coming to the table for some resolution. Why are these things happening in our community? And when we talk about, you talked about police brutality. When I go out and I talk to groups, I try to encourage them to educate the children about a police interaction. When the police rolls up, just the mere presence of that police car means that everything needs to stop that wasn't right. When the police officer gets out of the car, the mere presence of authority means that, okay, we need to calm down now. But then once I begin to articulate and to give you instruction and direction, you need to adhere to that instruction and direction. Because know what? I'm the visitor here. I don't know what was happening before I got here. Somebody has called me here to intervene. And so I don't know who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. I don't know who's the aggressor. I don't know what you have and what you don't have. When I ask to see your hands, I need to see your hands, because your hands can hurt me. What you have in your hands could hurt me if I can't see it. You could have a gun in your hand, in your pocket, and I can't see. My little jacket here, if I have my hands in my jacket here, you can't see what I have here. And I could just pull up my jacket, but then I could have a gun in it and I could shoot you. And so these are the things that we need to, that's why it all goes back to education. What are your rights? Your rights are, if an officer approach you, listen to what he has to say, follow his instruction, and everything will be fine. You can't, and I want to tell people, teach the children to live to tell their own story, not to die and it has to be figured out. Because if you're not there, you don't know what happened. And see, and that goes back to the media. And the media is showing us blurbs, but you have to be there from beginning to end to know everything that occurred, not just a little bit of film clip that happened to have been recorded after the event began. So it's important to learn the do's and don'ts. But the police were created to keep the community safe. And that's what we did. We took an oath to make sure everybody is safe. And in taking that oath, we decided to give our lives to protect you. So the last thing we want to do is to take your life. But if put in the situation where it comes down to protecting life, and it's a scuffle for my gun, who knows what the outcome is going to be. So when we talk about police brutality, yeah, there are some officers out there that shouldn't be police officers. Like there are doctors out there that shouldn't be doctors. There are preachers out there that shouldn't be preachers.
Yes.
You know? Right.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Right. So, and we all have a different role to play. But when we talk about authority, you know, and I want people to think about what the world would be like if there were no police officers. And then I want them to think about here, just in the city of Richmond, we have a population of 250,000 people or more.
Okay.
And we only have 700 police officers in the city of Richmond.
What? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. 700 police officers in the city of Richmond. So we're outnumbered how many to one?
A lot.
And,
I'm not about to do that math.
No, right. And the fact is that we respond to calls for service with people walking around with a machete. Remember the man 2 weeks ago that the officers shot because he had a machete-like weapon and he was walking around Main Street. And when they gave him instructions, he declined. And then he lanced forward at them, and the officers had to respond by because we don't carry knives.
Yeah.
Okay. So we respond to those kinds of calls every day. Gunfire. Somebody's walking down 911 call. There's a male walking down the street with an AK, and so the officers have to go. I can't say I don't want to go this time. Sit down. Sit down. I have to go, and I have to meet that threat.
Yeah.
And I have to get that threat to lay down that weapon. And if that threat decides not to, then I have to meet it force with force because I have to protect everybody else around. And see, the bad guy don't have to play by the rules, but I have to play by the rules because even if I have to take a shot, I got to make sure that my shot is directly just specifically there because if I miss and shoot Miss Shirley over there on the porch or somebody's little kid, I'm still in a whole whirlwind of trouble. I'm in trouble
Even if you're trying to protect them.
Right, and even if I shoot you, I'm still in trouble because I'm going to be tried by society before it even goes to court.
Yeah.
But until you're in my shoes, you could never understand how quick I have to make a decision on how having to save somebody's life. And so I want young people to understand is that it's okay to be heard, but the thing is this: sit still. Don't try to fight with the officer because you can't win with the officer. And even me with you two, if I give you instructions and you decide not to, and you say, well, okay, we can take her because she's only 5'5" and 99 pounds. But when the fellas arrive, then they see that you have total disregard for the law because I am the law regardless of how big or how small that I am. And that you are physically being aggressive towards me, then they have no options but to come in and to try to help protect me and to get you all into custody and care. And if you fight me, the police, then that means you have total disregard for the law. So what are the next the boundaries there? And that's what I want to talk about, the boundaries. It's okay to say things that you need to say, but then there's a time that you have to be quiet. There's a time that you can't move. There's a time that you have to follow clear instructions. And then if the officer says or does something that you think is not right, we have processes called internal affairs where you can call, you can email in a complaint on a police officer if they were rude to you, nasty to you, if they cursed, even if they cursed at you, you can call and report that. But if you try to take things into your own hands there on the scene, that is a lose-lose situation for everyone because the officer does not know where it's going and you're in your element. We're always a guest in the community. So we don't know where you're going, what you got. And even in a car, you know, whatever is in your wingspan in the car, you can get to and you can hurt me with that. But I don't know what's in the car. You know, and if you're picking up something, I don't know it's just your cell phone. If I only see the black part of it, I don't know that. So when we talk about police-involved incidents, you know, we need to make sure that our young people understand that, there was a lot of police brutality back in the early years. But in those stories, those adults are sharing those stories with the children, with the youth. And that is giving the youth a predisposed disposition about policing because they think that all police officers are bad and that they can really take the law into their own hands and they could be the judge right there on the scene and they can say what they're gonna and what they're not gonna do. It's like but when you're been stopped or detained by the police, you're not free to leave, then you have to follow the instructions that the police officers are giving you. And now, I know that there are times when we see officers with people on the ground and they're being beat. That is clearly not right. Okay, so I'm not here to justify police brutality when it's done and you got 4 officers on the scene and they're continuing to beat somebody.
Yeah.
That's. But I want still too for people to think about tunnel vision. That's what happens. The people get into that, and then there's nobody there that's going to take control and say, okay, that's enough. And see, and that's my responsibility as a supervisor. When I'm on the scene, I'm to care for everybody. It's like, calm down. We got enough people here now. You take him, because if the initial officer that was there, that was in the heat of the moment, he's still boiling. So I don't need him to continue to be with the person that he's had the altercation with.
Yeah.
So I need to swap him out and to get him away,
calm.
because they're going to continue to go at it. So those type things have to happen. But we have to have people there on the scene that can navigate and that can make these things happen. And even with the bad guys, say, look here, sweetie. And I call everybody sweetie. Look, hon, we're going to calm down now. We're going to figure out what's going on here. But we have to. When the police arrive, we're there to de-escalate things, not to help them escalate.
What are your thoughts on what happened in Charlottesville? I'm interested because I hear people say things like violence ensued. Where were the police? Is the kind of thing I hear. What is the process that y'all try to break up crowds? Because we have groups like Black Lives Matter, and then you have Antifa now that are like clashing. Like, is it the police's responsibility to get in the middle of that, or is it like, we can only do so much? Like you said, it's like there's 700 of us in the whole Richmond. Like, what are we supposed to do? So just tell me what your thoughts are.
Well, people have a right to protest, and there are guidelines within the protest. And so you have to look at the police as, we have to afford people their rights. Those are rights. And so when groups decide to go at it, it's a surprise to everybody. Right?
Yeah.
So we can't tell the KKK, you can't protest. We can't say Black Lives Matter, you can't protest, or you do it over here, you do it over there. So, and think about what we do. We are reactive, right? We are called to respond, because if we're in the middle of everything, then that's not our place to be in the middle of everything. And when we think about places like Charlottesville, and even here in Richmond, when we've had some incidents, we have people that are not from the community come to the community, and that's their number one goal. And there's nothing anybody can do about it unless you actively hear somebody planning. We're gonna go to Richmond and we're gonna wreck things. So that the police, and think about Charlottesville. Charlottesville is a quiet, peaceful little town. So there was no way anybody would have assumed that things would have gotten out of hand like that.
You're not fortune tellers.
Right, and we can't be that. So, but then I want you to go back to, unless you were there from beginning to end and you witnessed everything that happened, you can't even weigh in on the conversation. And imagine this, that the New York Jets are playing the Redskins for the Super Bowl, right? And so everybody's hyped and everybody's rooting for their team. And then at the end, whoever wins, everybody's saying, well, they should have did this, that Monday morning quarterback. Well, he should have did that, and he should. But you don't know what it was like unless you were on that field.
On the field,
and you were playing in one of those positions. And it was, and I said New York Jets because it could be like 0 degrees, and you're playing there, and it's cold as all outdoors up there, and everybody's sitting in there with their blankets or watching on TV, and you have the audacity to say, well, he should have did this, or he should have ran over there. And it's like, well, you're looking from a TV screen. You don't have an overview of the field. You're on the field. And so when you're on the field, you're playing what's in front of you. And that's what people have to realize. You can't Monday morning quarterback, because unless you were there in my shoes, you cannot have a say. And that's the same thing for Charlottesville, and I'm so sorry the young woman lost her lives, but it goes back to communication. And that everybody has to accept the fact everybody has the right to believe in whatever it is they believe in. And if we've been coexisting all of these eons of years, why do we have to continue to exhibit these behaviors of violence and hatred for human life and for other human beings? Because we coexist. We've been coexisting. And so it's not like that somebody can be put away in a box or in a closet in, or set on a shelf. So the goal is that God created us all to be here and to live here on his earth. And that's what, it's nowhere nobody has that power. And so they need to understand, everybody needs to understand that, you know, we're all God's people, and underneath the skin, we're all the same.
Yeah.
We're all the same. So, you know, we can't Monday morning quarterback. We can't say where were the police or why didn't the police do this, and we can't say why did one group do this or one group do that, because we were not in the shoes or the minds of anybody that was there, and we were not there in the element or the environment. And unless somebody waved the white flag and said, you know what, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this.
We're gonna show
nobody,
up
right?
and do this,
Nobody. And all it takes is for when you have a large group is for one person to say, let's say somebody says gun, the whole group is gonna run because they heard that in the middle of the crowd, or what, you know, whatever happened. We just don't know, and we can't even weigh in on it unless you were there. You can't. You know, we can say it's so unfortunate that in America that we're still at this phase.
Wow. We'll do one or two more fairly serious questions, and then we're going to do the bonus interview section.
Okay.
So we're going to make it a little fun.
One question.
You got a question? Go for it.
Okay.
What is your response to officers who are like in clear misconduct, but for some reason they still are able to get off? As in, I guess, what is it? I think the term within like the police is called like the blue wall. I think something like
The
that.
blue line, the thin blue line.
The blue line. So
Okay.
like, what is your response to, you know, when you see like an officer who has, again, like their actions have been in clear misconduct in taking the life of a civilian, but somehow the law still allows them to get off. Like, what's your response to that?
Okay. So I'm going to take you back
Real
to
quick, let me repeat the question
Okay.
just to make sure the podcast, because that's a good question.
Okay.
So the question was pretty much what Sergeant Adams' response is to what seems like clear misconduct from a police officer that may result in someone being hurt or killed, and it seems at times that they can get off without any kind of consequence. That summed it up? Yeah.
Okay. So I'll take you back to my father murdering my mother, the 5 gunshots, and he took her life, and he received a sentence of 7 years with 5 suspended. So when a police officer, whenever anyone's, your interaction with the police is limited. Your encounter with me, if I take you into custody, and that's the same with as if you're a police officer. When I take you into custody, whatever you've been charged with, I turn you over to the jailer system. And then you go through the criminal justice process, and that's the court system. So you're tried by a jury of your peers, and that jury of your peers dictates what your sentencing is. But the evidence has to be presented in court, and you know you have the defense, and then you have the Commonwealth. And so with all the evidence presented in court, then that's where your disposition comes from. Or a judge may weigh in, because you, as the defendant, you get to choose whether you want to be tried by a jury of your peers or the judge. And so that's what I mean when we see these cases, you have to go to court to hear all the evidence that was presented during the trial, because that's where the verdict comes from. So, but when we talk about taking somebody's life, but inside the police department, if there is misconduct, the police department investigates that misconduct, but we don't know unless you report it to us. So Zack could be stopped by an officer, and the officer could be totally horrible, and Zack was like, you know what, he was mean. He might tell all his buddies, but he'll never call the police and tell the police department that this guy was horrible. And you might run into the same guy. And so now you're his second person, and you might talk about it, and then you and Zack might share and say, you know what, I ran into that joker too. But neither one of you called the police. So every time that officer gets away with it, he's becoming more and more empowered because nobody is telling on him. And so when we get a complaint and we go out to investigate it through our internal affairs, yes, we do not, that is not acceptable behavior, misconduct. And so there are penalties, and we have a penalty system. It's sort of like drunk driving. So every time you get an offense, a reoccurring offense, that means the penalty is stiffer each and every time. Okay, and so, Don, I lost my thought. But when we go back to the verdict, that's how a verdict is disseminated. So But what you don't know is that even though the court may say that they find you not guilty, there's a police investigation that has to occur also. And so you may not have been found guilty of taking that life, but you will be found guilty of police misconduct and violating police rules and get fired for that. So we, the police, don't have control over the offense, because once the charge has been so we would write a report, it would go to the Commonwealth Attorney's office. The Commonwealth Attorney would decide whether they're going to prosecute or not. So that's left in the hands of the Commonwealth Attorney, first of all. So that's out of the hands of the police. So there are two investigations that must occur. But the first investigation is, the first is the criminal investigation. And that's what goes to court. And so once that criminal investigation is completed, then you would have an internal investigation. So you possibly receive penalty from both.
Huh.
Okay?
Interesting.
Okay, and see, the average citizen doesn't know that. And
No.
see, I worked in internal affairs, and so there was a police shooting, and then the court did not find the officer at fault. But my internal investigation found him at fault in violating several policies in which created the opportunity for him to be terminated. Okay, so there is that, and that's why knowledge is power. And so and the news only show you one piece, and you only get a snippet. And so that's why people have to read and become knowledgeable and even like with Ferguson, you have to read the entire transcript for the trial, because even there they found the officer's blood on the young man's clothes from the shooting. And so remember, you had all those witnesses that said that it was just shots fired. So that's what I mean when you have to, I urge everyone to follow a case from beginning to end. And even if it really interests you, go to court so you can hear the evidence, because the evidence has to be presented in the courtroom. And the police has no control over the courtroom. The only control we have is to arrest you on a warrant that has been issued by the magistrate or the court system to take you into custody for the 10 or 15 minute ride that I'm going to give you to the jail, and I'm going to turn you over to the jail. That's the only encounter that you would have with me. And that's why what we want people to understand is your encounter with the police is going to be very limited, 35 to 40 minutes to the most, maybe. So live for that 35 or 40 minutes, because the police, we're not the judge and the jury. Every charge and every arrest has to go before a judge, and the judge gets to decide whether the police were right or not. So the judge get to hear that evidence, and you get to present your own evidence. But if you try to take things into your own hands there on the scene, you don't live to present your own evidence. And that's what we want people to know. We want them to understand. And listen, look at the name. And I want people to know that a badge number means nothing. That's TV. Okay? That's for TV. That's for entertainment. So don't ask the officer what his badge number is, because he's going to tell you he don't know. Okay? He might. Some of the old guys might know, but that means nothing.
They're just like 7.
Yeah.
And you walk away.
And it can give you something. But you want to know what their name is. And then if you don't get the name, every police car has a number on it. And so you get the number from the police car, because see, we are a structured paramilitary organization. My car is attached to me. When I get in that car and I mark on and I give them my code number is attached to that car. So if the car gets missing, or if I get missing, they're gonna GPS my car. And the other thing is, all of our cars are GPS. So every car that an officer goes on, the screen tells us where they are and how long they've been there. So we have a lot of internal pieces that the average citizen does not know. But the thin blue line is in this chief of police and the chief of police that we had before, is that if I witness Zack doing something wrong and I don't tell him Zack, I'm going to be in more trouble than Zack was for whatever it is he did, because I'm his brother. I'm his sister keeper. I'm supposed to make sure, and I'm supposed to tell Zack, listen, that's not right. Stop that. And if I continue to see him exhibit that behavior, then I need to report him and to let somebody know that he either needs to go back for more training, and that'll be first. He'll go back for more training, and if he comes out and he continue to exhibit it, then you're just a bad apple. We can't have you amongst us, because we do not want any bad apples on our team.
That's good.
And so the blue line, there's no blue line except for when we're in danger and trying to save each other's lives. But when we talk about turning a blind eye and not telling on somebody, that was back in the old days, New York mafia, that kind of stuff. We
Yeah.
ain't,
Not doing that anymore.
no, none. That does, no. We're here to protect and to serve, and that's our number one priority, is to protect and serve. And I can tell you that we all meet people or have encounters with people, and we don't particularly care for what they say or how they act or how they treat us. But there are processes in place when we talk about professionals, and so we want people to utilize the process in place. And to be their own advocate, not to have somebody that wasn't there on the scene try to advocate for them because their voice can't be heard. Did that answer your question?
Well, I'm happy to end the main interview on that. That was wow. Okay. All right, let's go to the bonus interview section. Let's have a little fun because this has been heart-wrenching and informative. And just amazing. I've been having a blast listening to you. But yeah, let's go ahead to the bonus interview section. We'll have a little fun. What is the most embarrassing crime you have arrested someone for?
Embarrassing.
Yeah, embarrassing for them.
For them.
Doesn't have to be embarrassing for you. It could be. I would rather just hear for them.
Okay, so well, y'all a little bit too young to remember, but on Broad Street near Allen and Broad, we used to have a lot of people that dressed up like girls, and they weren't really girls.
Okay.
And so
there's a word for that.
yeah, but they weren't really girls. But they used to wear some bad dresses because I used to like, where you get that dress from, girl? So this one night, so I'm patrolling and I see this gentleman and he said, "Ma'am, I'm not gonna give you any trouble, and I'm not out here doing anything." And so I was like, okay. So he says, "What? I'm going to show you my ID." So I see his ID and I check it. And so he's fine because he's walking, but it tells me that he's suspended. He doesn't have a driver's license. So hours go by, and so it's like 5 o'clock in the morning. And so who do I see driving past me but him? Right? So I'm like, what? So when I, put the lights on and I go over to stop him, I was like, "But sweetie," he said, "Yeah, I don't have a driver's license." I said, "But you had all night to get home, and you approached me because I was not even interested in him, just watching the people walk up and down the street."
Yeah.
And so, but this guy, and I'll tell you, his wrists were so big that I could barely get the handcuffs on him. And so he can tell, and he's the big guy. And so he said, "I'm not going to give you any trouble." And I'm saying, "Please don't. Please don't." And so my backup was a VCU female officer on a bicycle, and I'm like, I can see this on the news.
Zack can see this on the news.
Right up and down the street by this big man, but he was sweet. He was like, "No, I'm not going to give you any problems. I'm not going to give you any problems." So I think I was like, holy crap. I'm like, okay, are they going to fit? It's like, hold on.
If you ran away and joined the circus, what would your act be?
Oh, juggler.
You would be a juggler?
Yes.
Can you juggle?
No,
but you want to.
I'm a great multitasker.
You're a great multitasker?
So I could work it out.
There you go. Okay, so you would want to be a juggler. Okay.
Yes.
What inanimate object do you wish you could eliminate from existence?
Can I say guns?
Sure. Yeah, totally. Yeah. That would be the object you would get rid of. Mm-hmm. Do you wish that like our police force was like England's, where they walk around with like
if there were no guns. Yeah,
if there were no guns.
Yes. See, we can only do that if
there were no guns. Yeah, but like now you wouldn't want that.
Yeah,
no, but if there were no guns, then just the bats.
No guns.
Okay,
No guns.
That's a great answer.
No guns.
Well, great. Well, that's the last question for the bonus interview. How can people find your organization and donate to it? If they say you really spoke to them, what are the best ways to find the organization donate?
Right. You can reach us at www.caroladamsfoundation.org. Mm-hmm. We also have Facebook. You can message me, but at the website there's an opportunity to go online and to donate, but then to also to read up on the organization and see some things that we have done, or you can reach me at 804-218-2866, and you will see our P.O. box also on the website. And our goal is we're opening up a new office space at 2600 Ottawa Avenue in September. So I'm looking for office furniture, slightly used, things to be donated. And we're also looking for a van to be able to transport our students, our babies, and families. Because if a family's here and they want to go to New York, I can put them in a van and drive them versus spending money to put them on the bus or on the train. So there are a lot of wonderful opportunities for people to donate and to help us. And we always need volunteers to come out and to help us pour back into the community. And specifically our children, we need for individuals to help us with opportunities to expose them to everything possible. And one of the things that I want to do, well, like at the office, I'm going to have a computer lab and a library. But I want to do STEM programs. I want to take them on field trips. I want to proctor the SATs and the PSATs right there at no cost. And I want to help prepare our youth because, education is we got to create that foundation so that they can be successful. And people afforded me opportunities that, back in 1980, from then to now, who would have known, who would have even thought the things that I've been afforded the opportunity to do. And it's only been because people have poured into my life, and people, even though my parents were taken away, other people have stepped up, and it's sort of like the village, and that's what God wants us to live. This life is about relationships, and money is wonderful, but it has a beginning and an end, but relationships are forever and indefinite, and that's the key, really the key to this life. And that's what I want to do is, like I talked about my families, I want to be forever connected to them. So I don't want to just say, hey, here's $100, go do the best that you can, but I want to always be there, because for me, I want to be able to look at this family 10 years from now and to see the beautiful flowers grow, and just for them to be able to be kids and to be a mom and not to have to worry, not to have to struggle, and to be able to help them navigate throughout the systems of life.
Well, that's amazing. You're an amazing woman. I'm just blown away. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you joining us, and thank you everyone who's listening. Please join us next time at Reaching Out. And my name is Zack Carter. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Zack.
Some quick food for thought. After the interview, Sergeant Adams looked at me and my producer and said something along the lines of, "Young men, if you are passionate about reforms to the police department, then join it. Young people need to understand that protests are fine, but if you want to make real change, do it from within." To which I replied, "Daggum! Why didn't you say that while we were recording?" Freaking A. Anyways, I thought that was awesome. Felt that it needed to be shared on the podcast, even if it was me trying my best to remember exactly the words she said. So hopefully I quoted her with some justice. Last thing, please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and leave a review. We appreciate it a lot. Please tell your friends about us. Thanks again for listening to Reaching Out with Zack Carter.